Welcome to another episode of Titan PI TV, where we're looking at the inside workings of a live operational investigation agency, that being here, Titan in Derby. These short episodes are designed to be informative, areas that we think people would like to know about, which are interesting and aren't giving tactics away. They're also covering questions which we are commonly asking by our client base, but also people within the industry. So today we're going to discuss harassment and the various forms of harassment. So harassment, sexual harassment, stalking. We're then going to look at how Titan may be able to help you and some examples of what Titan has investigated in regards to harassment before. And we're then going to advise you on if the police aren't interested in taking your harassment case, how you can further that and then sort of corner them into taking it on. So let's first of all do the boring bit, which is the law side of it. So I'll read this off the computer and then I'll place it into layman's terms. So harassment, the definition of harassment is subjecting someone to unwanted conduct which is either related to a relevant protected characteristic, such as race or sex, etc., or is of a sexual nature where the conduct has the purpose of affecting or violating the victim's dignity or creating an environment that is intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating or offensive. And this has to happen on more than one occasion. So that is the definition of harassment. Layman's terms, if someone causes or intends to cause you harassment, alarm or distress, and they do it on more than one occasion, that is harassment in layman's terms. So that would be where the offence lies. So some examples of harassment may be bullying in the workplace or in school or education system. So it might be university. Verbal abuse would certainly fit under the Harassment Act. Cyber stalking, antisocial behaviour, maybe someone's threatening or sends threats. Certainly sending messages via a telephone, if that's on more than one occasion it causes you harassment, alarm and distress, that certainly would be. Damage to property, and unwanted phone calls or potentially visits. So they are all examples of harassment. Sexual harassment then, which is a more serious form of harassment. This is covered under the Equality Act 2010. So the Act states that it is sexual harassment if the unlawful behaviour violates your dignity or creates an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating or offensive environment. So if it fits into that category, it would then become sexual harassment. And some examples of these would be sending images exposing yourself, unwanted, inappropriate sexual comments, using words such as slut or whore are covered in the Act, groping or touching. Those are just some of the examples under the Sexual Harassment Act. So let's look at stalking. Stalking is generally more aggressive than normal harassment. So there's an aggressive side to it. So this might be regularly following someone. It might be hanging around somewhere for periods of time where the person who's being stalked attends. It might be identity theft, where you copy their identity and become them. There are, however, 4 main warning signs, and if we have these 4, then we have stalking. So the first one is fixated, second one is obsessive, third one is unwanted, and the fourth one is repeated. If we have all 4 of those, we have a stalking. So how can Titan help? Okay, so there's a number of ways in which we can help. So I'm going to use 2 examples. The first one is going to be damage to property, for example. So your home address is receiving damage to the property or the vehicles overnight. So the first scenario is when you know who the person is or you have a good suspicion who the person is. We would deploy 1 surveillance operative for a minimum of 5 hours. There is no maximum, but the minimum is 5 hours. They would watch the address and they would gain imagery of the damage if it occurred during the period of deployment. This would only gain imagery of it happening and ideally the person who's committing it. Same scenario, but we don't know who the person is. We might have them on CCTV and we're sure that we don't know who the person is. So in this scenario, we would suggest 2 surveillance operatives deployed for a minimum of 5 hours. Once again, there is no maximum. And we would suggest that we watch the property, we watch the act be conducted, but then we follow that person away to what we call house them, which is to put them to a subject address. Once we've put them to a subject address, we can do a desktop exercise and we can find out who these people are. So there's two options for each scenario. Second scenario I'll give you is a person in a public place, an open space or a park, constantly is hanging around waiting for you, and then there's either threats or lewd behaviour, etc. First option again, one surveillance operative. This is purely to evidence the act occurring and try and get ID identification of the person so we can try and identify them. Ideally, that's if you know who the person is. If you don't know who the person is, it's going to be two surveillance operatives deployed, and we will do what we did in the first scenario, which is to gain evidence of the act of what's happening and try and get ID imagery of the person, but we're also going to follow them away and try and house them. And once again, desktop exercise to then try and identify who those people are, and then we can go to the police and give them a package in regards to who this person is, and then that can be pursued by them. So that's what Titan can do for you. Some examples that Titan have dealt with before. So we've dealt with damage to vehicles, which is one of the scenarios I've just mentioned. Malicious mail posted by hand. We've dealt with that successfully before. Theft from bins, where there's been a visitor during the daytime who's taken items out of a bin, which could be leading up to identity theft, which could be the stalking. Antisocial behaviour, where either noise or drug dealing or whatever, we've dealt with a number of cases of antisocial behaviour. Verbal abuse, so you come outside your property, a neighbour comes out and you're given verbal abuse, which is a public order offence, which is a criminal offence. Or graffiti. We've done this for both businesses and private dwellings, where graffiti has appeared overnight. And it's a simple case of gaining that evidence and then trying to identify who it was. So there are a few more ideas of how harassment, some examples of harassment we've dealt with. So we hear this quite commonly, unfortunately. So you've reported it to the police. The police don't really want anything to do with it, so you come to us. We do one of the scenarios that I've just told you, either one operative to film it or two operatives to house them. The police aren't interested. Okay, that isn't in all cases, but we hear it an awful lot, or maybe that's just because a lot of people who are told that, or given advice by the police, which is not particularly effective and active, maybe they then come to us, so we hear it more often, but we do hear it an awful lot. So if this is the case, if the harassment continues, if you feel in imminent danger or risk to yourself, then it's always got to be 999. If it's ongoing harassment, such as abuse when you leave your house or graffiti, then that isn't 999. What we would say is create a log. This can be written or it can be on a computer. So you need the time, the day and the date. And then you need a detailed narrative of what has occurred during the incident. You need to fill that in as soon as practicable, because you will forget elements. If you leave it days, the time might be wrong. So you need to do it as soon as practicable. As soon as it's happened, write it down in your book or open your laptop and have a Word document ready just to add the next incident to. If it is an electronic copy, such as on your laptop, we would also suggest, if there is supporting imagery or video footage, then we would suggest having a screenshot of that in the document. So it might be that it's happening outside your house, you know who it is, police aren't interested, so you start to log all the events that they come and damage property or damage vehicles. If you've got CCTV, just take a still of the CCTV of it happening and put it into your log on your laptop. You really need to save the video imagery, so from your video footage from your CCTV, if someone's caught it on a mobile phone, once again a screenshot and put it in the electronic document. It's all important to do, and you need to keep that for about 6 months. Once we've kept that for 6 months and we've kept any CCTV or any supporting imagery or video footage, we can then approach the authorities again. If we've logged it over that period of time, it's going to show whether the frequency of events is increased. It's going to show whether they have got more serious. So there are escalations in incidents. And then the police can either take action under the Harassment Act, or it might be that the local authority might get involved with doing an eviction, which we can do a private eviction, or they can do a private eviction. Or if none of those, we still have the option of potentially being able to go to a solicitor and having private litigation, such as an injunction or something similar to that. So that is harassment in a nutshell. If you have any inquiries in regards to harassment, then please give us a call at one of our 9 offices from London to Manchester. Once again, thank you. That's another episode of Titan PI TV. As always, give us a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any further episodes. See you next time.